Hello, Emma. Welcome to the podcast. I'm so excited to have you.
Thank you for having me. I've been so looking forward to this. I was going to say
Yes.
all week, but it's Tuesday. I've been so looking forward to this for the past 7 days.
Yes, same. And you and I just had a revolutionary moment of we are matching today. We need to show them. Show them we're business on top, but we got active wear.
It's like presentable this way up from the bottom half. We're a bit more comfy.
Right. Oh, that's so funny. That's hilarious. So I always put on little like runner active shorts and a nice top because nobody ever sees the bottom half.
We're fine. Party up top, comfy down the bottom.
I love it so much. Okay, I'm so excited to dive into this conversation today because we're going to be talking about verbalizing your why and creating content that really speaks to it. So before we get into that, I would love for you to introduce yourself and what it is that you do.
Perfect. So I'm Emma and I run the House of Social, which is a social media management marketing company, hopefully soon to be agency, that helps the passionate female entrepreneur grow on Instagram and reach her ideal community. So more than just selling, it's about building that community and fostering those connections. And I help the women who don't quite know how to do it or don't have the time to do it.
Yes, I love that so much. Okay, diving right in, verbalizing your why. I'm going to be honest, I actually didn't realize what your why in any given situation, what that actually meant. I heard people talking about it all the time of you have to know your why. You have to know your why behind these goals or these habits you want to form. So just for the person that was me a couple of years ago that didn't know what the heck your why is, can you break that down of what even that means?
So I think there's this great Japanese word that I'm not even going to try pronounce, but it basically translates to your reason for being, and it is the reason that you get up out of bed every day, and it gives your life fulfillment. And I think that's just such a beautiful way to look at it, because for your why in business, it has to be something more than just you want to make money, because obviously that's the point. You've started a business, you want financial freedom, but to take the stress of running a business, you need something a little bit more than wanting to make money. So, like, why did you start your business? Who is it that you want to help? What service, what product, what transformation are you giving to that person? And like, why are you risking like your life, like your possible money? Like, this failure is on you, and to have that amount of stress, you need something else to impassion you to want to do it. So knowing that why will really connect you with the people that you're trying to sell to, the people that you want to work with. And not knowing that why makes it really difficult for people to really get to know you and to want to invest with you or buy from you.
Yeah. And it also attributes to burnout, wouldn't you say? Not having a why to be able to go back on just creates burnout
100%.
and exhaustion and like give up mentality almost.
Because if you want to be like 100% committed to turning this dream of yours into reality, if you don't have that why pushing you every single day, like I say to people, if you're really feeling burnt out, just take a minute and remind yourself why you're doing this in the first place. And if you don't know, then it's going to make it that much harder to pick yourself up if something goes wrong and keep pushing on.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I know that there's differing levels of why too. I would say the most common one when it comes to fitness is a lot of, I know I said this for myself, and I know we're not talking about fitness here, but this is like the most common example I know of is whenever we want to lose weight or whatever the case may be with fitness in general, it's so I can feel good in my clothes or that I can wear a bikini with confidence. But I've found that sometimes that why isn't strong enough. So how do you know that your why that you've determined for yourself is actually strong enough? Is it putting it to the test? Is it going deeper within the why of does the why kind of cross off these must-haves?
I think it's almost going deeper. So if you want to sort of go with the fitness analogy, like, okay, you want to feel more confident. Like, why do you not currently feel confident? And most often there's something that's happened in your life that's led you to feel this way. So if it's like business, say someone wants to start making, I don't know, like hair bands. Okay, why? You like them, but why? And if you really dig deep, maybe, you know, when you were a kid, your mom used to put your hair up with hair bands, or you have that memory that connects, and now maybe you have a daughter and you love doing her hair, and that's why you want to create that product. So it's more than just that sort of initial base level. And I think that's where a lot of people struggle because they don't know to ask themselves these questions.
Yeah.
Whereas, really just digging deep and being like, okay, why do I not feel confident? Or why, even just making money, why do you want to make money? Is it to
Yeah.
buy a new house? Is it so that you can treat your loved ones? Is it so you can treat yourself? Like
Yeah.
there's always that little bit something deeper that sometimes people just scratch the surface of. And then that's where
Yeah.
they really struggle to verbalize it. Because I want to do this. Okay, but why?
Yeah.
you
It's
know?
kind of like it's kind of like bringing out that inner toddler in all of us that would ask the question why all the time
Yes.
to literally everything you're saying. And at some point you get to a point where you're like, because I said so. But we almost have to do this with ourselves. I mean, you just did it of, well, why do you want to earn more money? Why do you want to feel more confident? Why don't you feel confident now? So it's less less annoying, but really getting to the root of why do you want to make this change? Let's get to that root because that root of it is going to be the strongest why that you possibly could come up with essentially.
Yeah, because no one else has like your experience. So even if you're creating a business that, maybe someone else is doing, there's a lot of, in my instance, social media managers, but no one has like walked the same journey that I have. So my
Mhm.
why base level could be the same as someone else. I want to help women. I want to help break the glass ceiling. I want to take us all together. But why? So like my why for that is going to be very different to another person's why. And that's why it's important to really like dig deep because
Mm,
otherwise you're not sharing your experience. You're just kind of, it can come across as generic, which is where people struggle to stand out from the competition. But if you share your experience and your story, people are going to connect with it because it's different. No one else has that experience.
that is such a good point that you bring up. I was literally just thinking it right before you said it of people will get stuck in the generic
Mhm.
because it's really easy to hit taking again the fitness example, it's really easy to speak to, and this will resonate with some people, women or men. Let's we'll say for both, want to feel comfortable or confident wearing a bikini, wearing a swimsuit, being comfortable in their clothes. That is going to speak to a lot of people, but going that much more deeper, that's where the hard and gritty work comes into play. But that almost like exactly what you said, generic, like that just touches the surface. That's almost, I don't want to say low hanging fruit, but do you know what I mean? Like it's almost available to everybody. You want to get up really really high in that fruit tree to the piece of fruit that nobody else is really talking about, but it needs to be talked about. So that kind of changes or transitions us into the verbalizing your why effectively. Is it because people aren't doing the hard work to get to their why that they're not then able to verbalize it because they haven't done the work themselves?
I think a lot of people just kind of want to skip to like the good part. I guess we all want to skip
Mm,
to the part of business, which is working with clients and making money and, doing the part of the business that you enjoy. But I think a lot of people really skip these initial steps. Like in their branding, I think a lot of people think that your brand is just your logo and your colors and your fonts, but like your branding is your values and your messaging
mm,
and your why. And if you're skipping these steps and jumping straight to making content and doing all these bits, like there's just something missing and people can sense that. And that's why you can't, like, you're not standing out. And when people are really frustrated because they know they've got a great product and they know that they can do well and they're not sure where they're not connecting, chances are they've not done this work at the beginning to really
mhm,
like figure out what story is it you're trying to tell and how are you going to communicate that to people, to clients, to your followers, just even if it's just to your friends and family. If you give them a 2-minute elevator pitch of what it is your business is, do they really understand why? Do they understand who it is that you're talking to? Because if in its basic terms, if you're not really explaining that to people, then that's where you're really going to struggle.
So then how do we get in the mode or do that hard work at the beginning? Like what questions do we need to be asking ourselves? Is it just why over and over? Sometimes being exposed to somebody's thoughts or somebody's ideas will spark something within ourselves. So is it getting out there, meeting new people, watching a whole bunch of different TV shows that are all different across the board, reading, listening to music, or what are some things that you would recommend so that they get that kind of spark of, oh, that actually speaks a lot to me and I have a lot of experience with that.
I think getting into that like sort of creative zone, like their creative zone of genius, and really just
Mm,
doing something that they love. So if that's creating the product or if that's working on a new service and getting really excited about it. And when
yeah.
you're in that moment where you're suddenly fired up and you're passionate and you are imagining people just loving what it is that you're creating, in that moment, just think about what that means to you and like
Mm,
why it is that you've put yourself out there, just you know, doing things that you're not afraid for people to laugh at you for, like really just doing things that you enjoy and thinking.
mm,
It's almost even like the what, the how, and the why. So like, what is it that you're doing? Like, how are you doing it? Who is it for, if we want to throw another one in there? And then why? So like really just asking yourself those sort of 4 questions. So like, what really is it that you're doing here? Who would you love? I say to my clients all the time, if you were to get an email tomorrow from your dream client, who are they? And get really
yeah.
specific. How old are they? What's their name? I tell them to name them. What do they do for a living? What does their email look like? And then when you know who it is that you're speaking to, it just becomes crystal clear how you want to create your message and speak to them. And that all ties in with your why. Because at the end of the day, like for a lot of us that create businesses, it's not even necessarily about us. It's about the person that we know that we're going to help. And it's the person
Mm,
that we know that we can transform their lives. And obviously, it's great for us because we get to run a business and we get to have freedom and time. But for me, I don't get out of bed every morning because I particularly like working 24/7. I get out of bed because there is a client out there that I get to connect. And when for me, when she then goes and makes 10 sales or she buys her kids something that she's always wanted to, that for me, like that sparks a joy in me that like nothing else will.
so it's almost like we're speaking to a younger self. So I know you just said our content and our why isn't necessarily for us, but it comes from us. So there's a little
Mhm.
bit of that difference of we've been through it and we've gotten to the other side, and now we're kind of speaking to the younger Emma, the younger Mandy, the younger whoever is listening to this episode right now. You're almost speaking to that younger person and giving them the guidance or the help that you kind of wish you might have had, or maybe you did get from a mentor or somebody you admire. But it's kind of speaking to that younger self. Is that kind of the similar thing with content's not for us, but it's from us, from our
Yeah,
experiences?
I love that perspective. It's almost like if we were to go back in time and yeah,
Yeah.
like say, I have this great resource for you or this person that can really help you. Like I would have loved to maybe a year ago when I was really struggling to connect. And I did connect with some amazing people online
Yeah.
that really helped me get to where I am now, because it's not like we can do all this by ourselves. Like you need a
Right.
support. And when you're
Right.
connecting with those people, the first thing a lot of people ask is, why did you start your business? And again,
Mhm.
if you're like, I don't really know, like if you can't even tell a friend why you've started your business, you're not going to connect with your ideal audience. And that's where like really just understanding it's just so important. I feel like people miss it so much. But
Yeah.
think about you or anyone who's listening when you first started your business. Like, okay, you woke up on a Tuesday and you decided, I'm going to start doing this. Why?
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. I also agree with you. It's not one of those overnight things we wake up on a Tuesday and think, I would like to go into business for myself. It's actually more of it's a compound effect that we don't take into consideration. So, I mean, for instance, my business is a pandemic business. It happened because I lost the job I had before. Not that I was completely in love with it. I was actually in like a really weird middle ground of I don't know what I offer, or I don't know what I can do, and found coaching and found a need for it. But
Mhm.
all along, if I go back, um, I remember being in workspace situations where I just was like not I was mistreated by a lot of my fellow female coworkers. And I just remember, gosh, I don't want to be in these toxic environments. And it's not to say that every single environment is like that. And I'm sure there's people that work in all kinds of different types of jobs and they love what they do, work with females all the time. I love me some females, but I was just in, it just felt like I was going from one toxic workplace to another. And I always knew deep down I would love to be able to work for myself, but how the heck do I do this? So it's almost like a compound effect. And then when given the opportunity, I didn't even think twice about it. I couldn't tell you why in the moment, but it was a compound effect from years before, and everything just kind of came to a head. So doing the work, going backwards and kind of taking a little walk down memory lane of, can you remember the first couple of times that you thought, I'd like to work for myself, or I'd like to have my own business, or wouldn't be so cool if I sold my own fill in the blank? Not
Yeah.
the wake up on a Tuesday, I think I'm going to start a business, because nobody does that.
If you do, you're probably a sociopath, but like fair enough if it's just like, I'm just gonna do this today.
Like, good for you for knowing what you want to do. Like, sister, you've got your life together. I don't know what the rest of us are doing. Okay, so creating content that speaks to our why, like our deep rooted, big honkin', solid why, not the I want to feel good in my clothes or whatever your why you thought your why was. Creating content looks like going back and doing that hard work and almost writing those things down of, I mean, even me just saying, going down and writing, I didn't like being in toxic workplaces. Not every workplace is toxic, but I didn't like bickering with my fellow coworkers. I wanted to be respected and treated equally, right? I wanted to be just treated respectfully, which sounds really crazy, but it was those types of workplaces that I did not want to be around anymore, but didn't know where I could possibly go that allowed that. Wasn't going to go back to corporate, or never go into I was never going to go into corporate. I knew I wasn't made for a 9 to 5 job. So then creating content that also speaks to those types of people that maybe feel the same way. What does that kind of process look like? Is there a magic checklist, or is it really just honing in on your own why you're messaging and how you want to express it?
I think it's like a good healthy mixture of both. So like there isn't a one size fits all. If there was, I mean, I'd be out of a job. But
Yeah.
I think really honing in on the pain points that you yourself have been through. So like what you
Mm,
said about, we're making it the content for our ideal client, but through our own experiences. So like,
mm,
what did you really struggle with? What was your pain point? And then more than that, what was your motivation? Like, what are your goals? So I guess it's a little bit different for like service and product providers. But if it's a service that you are providing, whether you're a coach or you help, you know, with holistic wellness, and you think, okay, why would someone need me? Like, what are their pain points? And how do I, like, I'm providing a solution. So just
mhm,
speaking to where they might be struggling, because chances are a lot of us have been through something similar, like struggle wise. So if you really just connect with that and explain that, you know, that because you're so passionate about it, and if you get that excited about it, chance someone else will get that excited about it as well.
mhm,
And just really honing in on the motivations and the goals around why someone would want to work with you, and connecting with them on a more personal level. Because just because someone needs a coach, think how many coaches are out there, think about how many social media managers are out there. They want to know
mhm,
that you've walked somewhat a similar path that they're also walking on. So creating
mhm,
content that really, first of all, it's just honest. Like, I don't think you should ever make content if you don't really understand the topic. So just because you see another coach or another brand designer or another social media manager talking about a very niche topic, then just going and sort of recreating that, even if you aren't necessarily sure what the topic is.
yeah,
Just speaking your own truth, I think, is so important. And from that, from your experience being like, you know, a sort of thought leader in it. So people love to hear going against the grain and your controversial opinion because of your experience. People don't want to hear the same sort of generic, you know, truths. Obviously we're all trying to provide value, but you can provide value from your experience and from what you think is right. You don't have to sort of
mhm,
proclaim this fact. You don't have to say this is how you do it, but just saying to people, hey, there's another option here, there's a plan B that you can do. You don't have to follow this route that everyone else is doing. Like recently, I think a lot of coaches have been selling by how much money they make. So they're using their brand
mm,
statements rather than who they're helping. And everybody seemed to jump on this bandwagon of creating content.
mhm,
I made 6 figures, I made 7 figures, I made 8 figures. Okay, but who are you helping? Like, who has
mhm,
really benefited from that other than
mhm.
yourself? So I
Yeah.
think creating content that really just speaks to your experience, but also how you're helping the ideal client, that's how you really like get that sweet spot in the middle.
Yeah. We're almost, it's not almost, we are in a very different marketing age than what our parents and grandparents were in. It was very, it was a little bit more sneaky and more mysterious, and that totally worked. With our millennial and Gen Zers coming up to take on the workplace, they see through everything. They
Mm-hmm.
see through the fake, they see through the fluffy. They just want straight facts. They just want the information. Excuse me. Um, so they just want straight facts, and they don't want fake, and they'll see right through it. So we almost have to work in our marketing strategy a little bit harder, in the sense that we really have to dig deep to the honest, to the raw, to the real, which might be a little bit difficult for some, but in actuality, it should be a relief that you don't have to put on, you know, glitter and spark. I mean, if you want to, glitter and sparkles are always welcome, but you don't have to put on the grandiose presentation. Like, you don't have to have the craziest, most complex graphics. You don't have to do any of that. You just have to speak from your own truth. And I love what you said too, is it's going to resonate and it's going to click with somebody else. The most important thing that people seem to forget, and I get that it's easy to, because there's so many different spinning wheels going on at the same time, or so many spinning plates in the air, I think is the terminology. Um, but the thing that we forget about is human nature. Like, we just want to be heard, understood, and listened to. That's basic human nature, and it got a little confused or lost once upon a time, or maybe it never did, but now it's coming up to the forefront so much more now, that
Mm-hmm.
all people want is to feel heard and understood. That's it. I mean, I'm sure you get DMs like this, and anybody that's listening probably gets DMs like this too when you put something up in your stories, and maybe it has nothing to do with your business and everything to do with your kiddos or your pets or your spouse, your partner, whatever. Somebody will then send a DM and be like, "Ah, my kids do the same thing," or my partner does the exact same thing, or the dog that I am watching, she puts her legs behind her, and I put it up on, like, she splays out, like all of her legs are splayed out. It's the cutest thing I've ever seen. And I put it up on my stories, and I can't even tell you how many DMs I got of people saying it's called the sploot.
I've never heard that.
In my life. But that's a perfect example, is that has literally nothing to do with my business, has nothing to do with me, everything to do with that cutie pie of a dog who likes to splay out her legs, like living her best life. And people relate to that. And it's sparking a conversation, and not to say that this is some kind of manipulative way for me, oh, now I can make a connection and sell my stuff. No, no, don't get it twisted here. We're trying to make connections and relationships with people, and if that happens to be through a dog that sploots, don't you just love that word? I almost want to say it all
Love
the time.
that word.
But that is people, it's resonating, even though it's something silly like that, but that is resonating with people, and they feel safe and trust you enough that you've created that space that they want to talk back to you and say, oh, that's what that's called, or my kids do the same thing, or my family loves to do this, or maybe have you tried this? We're all just trying to be helpful. We might think of it as, some opinions that maybe we don't want to hear, but if you just think about it, people just want to be helpful, or think that they are, for any matter. But most of all, they just want to be heard and understood. And you're doing a disservice by not sharing parts of your own story that could speak to someone else and make them feel more understood. Because the worst feeling in the world is feeling like you're alone and nobody understands you, and going through something that you don't think anybody else has gone through, or that they know what it's like. That's absolute worst. So you can change that by actually speaking to your why, which everybody seems to think is cliche and, oh, I don't want to speak to my experience, when actuality, that's what people need the most.
I think as well what you said about how like our parents and grandparents were in a very different
Mm,
age. I feel with being mixing your personal and your professional back then was like straight no, like you would never
mm,
professional, but now people want to know what you do behind the scenes, and they want to know what you do in your life, and they want to know that you don't maybe get up at 4 a.m. and run a marathon and have 5 smoothie bowls and then do 10 hours work and it's not even 8 o'clock. Like, it's not life. Like,
Okay, first and foremost, who is that?
too many people on social media. And
Who
if
is
you
up
can
at
do
4
that,
a.m.? Stop it.
if you can do that, all power to you. But if you want to sleep till 10 and get up and do some yoga and have a big bowl of chocolate cereal and then do client work, then people want to know that they're not the only one that can't. I personally have never seen 6 a.m. and that's okay. I never will see that time in the morning.
Mm-mm.
But I
Mm-mm.
recently spoke with the loveliest girl who reached out to me for some advice because she was working with a very, very big brand that I'm not going to say, but who had told her that if she kept showing her face and speaking to her experience, they weren't going to work with her anymore. She was
Mm.
really confused because people like me, big advocate for showing up and people buy from people, and you really need to have that sort of no trust like factor before people will buy from you. And it was just basically an older person that worked in the company that told her you
Mm.
cannot share your personal life. It's very unprofessional. You'll never make sales. And then
Mm.
after we spoke for a little bit, she felt so empowered to just start showing up for herself and just chat to her experience. And she's now freelancing and making money on her own, which I
Mm.
feel like we just need to kind of let go of this idea that there's a right way to do business. Because even if you maybe don't want to show your face, you don't have to. You don't have to do anything that makes you uncomfortable. There's
Mm-hmm.
different ways that you can show up and tell your story without showing your face. Sometimes people just like to connect and kind of know the face behind the brand. But again, there's no pressure. You don't have to do things because someone else is doing it. There isn't a right way to do this anymore. Just finding the way that works for you. So whether that's telling a really captivating, gorgeous story in a caption where you say, this was my experience and this has happened, and write in like almost a mini blog. People love that in captions. Or if you want to, show up on stories, if you want to do lives, whatever you're comfortable with, show up with what makes sense for you, because there isn't like
Mm-hmm.
a one size fits all. We don't have to do what, because back in the day, I feel like our parents and grandparents had to sit to a very rigid sort of rule almost. It was like unwritten rules in business that you had to follow. Well, I mean, I guess women weren't part of that, but that's another problem.
Yes.
Gentlemen club rules where you didn't speak about
Yeah.
your family life or whatever, and you didn't speak about your experience. Everything was just black and white and very, you had to only speak to what was going well. You would never speak about failure or things that weren't working. But now people want to know your failures. They want to know, what you're vulnerable about. And I will happily go on my stories and say, I tried this and it was a complete flop. Like, I did this and it
They
didn't work.
need to know it. They need not even want, they need to know the failures, because failure is not the opposite. I know this is the cheesiest thing that people will say. Failure is not the opposite of success. It's a part of it. The only way that you're going to figure out what works is if you figure out the ways that don't work. And there's no shame in that whatsoever. And I will wholeheartedly admit to the things that I've tried in the past that are like big, big no-nos in the world of social media. But I almost feel like it's more relatable, again, going back to like, I did the engagement pods, I did giveaways, I did follow loops, I did all of those. I realized, I knew like in the moment, like, I think this isn't gonna be good, but I'm just gonna ignore it and I'm just gonna keep going on, going on with my bad self. And in actuality, they're crap. They're not gonna help whatsoever. They're not gonna be detrimental. They're not gonna, absolutely kill the vibe. They're gonna get pretty darn close to it, right? Um, but I have no problem talking about the things that I've tried that didn't work, even the things that are like big no-nos in the world of social media or, elsewhere, because it's a part of your story and how you got to where you are now. But it also makes you so much more relatable, that you aren't just this like picture perfect, woke up with our makeup on and our hair done and our nice top and our athletic shorts. Like, we didn't wake up like this. We had to put some effort in. And then even before that, we had to get into a routine and figure it out and so on and so forth. But I wholeheartedly agree with you that failures need to be talked about, because we've created, and hopefully we're getting better about it now that more studies have shown about social media and how detrimental they can be to young minds. But we need to talk more about the things that aren't working and the messy desk space or the, random things that are going on in the background. That's all so normal. We've almost like desensitized and made this idea of perfection and this highlight reel make
Mhm.
it seem like reality when, gosh, it's far, far from it. So speaking more to that, could not agree with you more.
Because it's almost like people have this great idea and they're super passionate and they want to start a business and they go on Instagram and
Hmm.
it's so easy to be incredibly intimidated
Yeah.
by these perfectly seeming accounts where the business owner, as you said, just wakes up looking fresh and
Yeah.
works 30 hours but still has time for their family and their kids and their dog and their social life. Whereas
Hmm.
the reality for all of us, and we're all going through it, is we wake up at 2 a.m. and think, oh my God, I didn't send that email. And then we like panic, or we have to take time off because, again, like kind of drawn back to what we said at the start, like this is a lot of stress. Like, as much
Hmm.
as we love what we're doing, and I wouldn't give it up for anything, like some days I'm like, oh, I'm having a day and I need
Mm.
to know why I started, but I also need to take myself away from Instagram at times because there are still so many people that want to just show the perfect life, which again, if like that's great if that works for you, but for me it's just not real life. And I feel myself sometimes comparing, thinking, gosh, why am I not at that stage, or why don't I have that many followers, or how are they managing to do this and still look like that when I've got bags
Yeah.
under my eyes and my hair is a greasy bun and I'm trying to film a reel and it's not working. Like, I think it's just, I just lie down and with like a full tub of ice cream, and I'm just like, is anyone else going through this right now? Is anyone else
Hmm.
on day 2 of only having ice cream for dinner? Just me?
That doesn't sound like that bad. I'm gonna say. I'm just gonna say it doesn't sound bad to have ice cream for dinner. I'm
With the
that
bottle.
person. Oh
Hmm.
yes, with a bottle of wine. You say a whole bottle. I'm like with a glass, and Emma's over here with her whole bottle. Girl, you do you. I love that. That's so great. It's probably a bottle for me. Let's be real. Oh, that is so good. I feel like this has been such an encompassing conversation. Getting back, I mean, we said it at the beginning, but getting really to the root of your why, but also the root of your story, and the root and the reality of it is it's far from this perfect, sparkly, glittery. If sparkly, glittery is a part of your thing, please let it be so. If it's not, don't force it. But getting down to the root of who you are as an individual, what your values are, what your why is, and think back on all those times that led you to the moment that you're at now. You obviously want to be on social media for a reason. What is that reason? It's not just because you think it's fun or you see these other girls doing it and you think you could do it. There is another reason why, but you got to do the work to be able to figure it out.
And it's important as well to remember, like, the story never just ends. Like, the chapter doesn't
Yeah.
close. Like, you're always learning, you're always doing something different. Like, hell, I pivoted after what, 6, 7 months and completely changed my business, including why I was doing it, because I just kind of had an epiphany halfway through the year. And for that, I'm still learning and the story's still ongoing. And I get to tell
Mm,
that my way on my terms because it's my account. So I get to tell the story in any way I like. I get to share whatever aspects of my life I feel comfortable with because it's my story and the chapter doesn't just end. You know, you don't just figure out your sort of your story and your why and say, okay, that's done now, because
it's
different experiences
evolving.
are going to, exactly, they're always going to keep happening, and you might get a certain client that kind of opens your eyes to something, or you might make 50 sales on a product that you didn't think was going to do well, and everything just
Mm,
kind of just keeps going. And I think that's important to remember. Again, so like cliche, but it is really a journey. Like, so if you're worried that you can't nail it right now, even just sort of laying the foundations of why you started, and then just take the time and like just be gentle with yourself, knowing that it will fall into place if you're doing the work. Obviously, if you're just kind of lying around drinking wine and eating ice cream, it's probably not going to happen for you. But if you're
probably not as fast.
or maybe that's where the creative genius comes in, each to their own.
Yeah.
But if you're putting in the work, I think my biggest takeaway from social media is be kind with yourself and like
Mm.
know that it will, if you're doing the work, it will fall into place. Like nothing's going to happen overnight. No one's going to become, 10,000 followers overnight.
Yeah.
Just put out there the story that you want people to know, and it will attract, like your account will become like a magnet to the people that you want to attract.
I love that so much. That's so good. I feel like we could just continue talking about this all day, all day long. It's just such good stuff. Like it's good, hearty, down to the bare bones of why people go into business or why they're advocates for, a certain cause or why they start this organization. It doesn't even have to be for a small business and an entrepreneur. It can just be, a community that you build in your own hometown or on social media, whatever it is. I just think it's such an important topic that gets really glazed over because you and I have both even said it a couple of times, like it's so cliche. We just need to normalize that. We need to like take away the cheesy cliche, and you and I both did it, and that's because we've been I don't want to say conditioned, but we've kind of been brought up with that. Oh, it's so cheesy. It's not cheesy, it's real, it's true, and it's authentic. And that's what we need to focus on normalizing is let's just talk about the stuff that sucks. Let's talk about the stuff that's not working. Let's talk about why you're really in this. You don't want to just be another fashion blogger. Nobody just wants to be another fashion blogger. They want to do something important. They want to make an impact and they want to help people with something. What that is, only you can tell. Oh my gosh, that right there was cheesy. Talk about ham. Oh my Lanta. That was, please, whoever's editing this podcast, edit that part out.
No, keep it in. That was perfect. I want it to fade out to that. It's up to you. And then it fades.
Oh, that's so good. That's so good. Okay, Emma, share with everybody listening where they can connect with you and where they can potentially work with you.
Amazing. So my Instagram is thehouseof.social. I'm going to say that slowly for the accent. I know that might be a bit of a struggle for some people. And there are a couple of different ways that you can work with me, which all revolve around Instagram. So if you're struggling at all with Instagram, we can either do a done for you service or I can coach you. Either way, I would love to hear from you. So please feel free to reach out. And yeah, this has been so much fun.
Such a good conversation. Again, I probably could talk to you all day, and I'm probably going to be sliding into your DMs here soon. Like, hey, can we have an evening of ice cream and wine? Sounds good to me.
Yes, please.
Done. It's happening. Thank you for joining, Emma. It's been such a pleasure chatting with you.
Thank you for having me. Let's do this again tomorrow.
Hands down. Absolutely. Done. Scheduling after I hit done.